Incredibly tough challenges, otherworldly enemies and crawling dungeons to explore awaits us all in one of the most anticipated games of this year, Remnant 2. At the time of recording, it's just a couple of days before release and the hype is through the roof. Root is back once again and we are here to stop them. During our journey we'll be equipped with a vast range of armors, weapons, special powers and abilities, being able to choose between many different archetypes that you can equip at any time during your playing through by selecting the corresponding archetype item. These are essentially classes. The Hunter will be one of the initial 4/5, depending if you pre-order or not, that you can select at the beginning of the game. Hello folks, I am Ocandersis and in this video I will give an extensive look at the Hunter, breaking down all of its perks, skills, see what they do and when, highlighting some of the possible combinations with other starting archetypes that are being already revealed. With no surprise to anyone, the Hunter is your long-range fighter. Overseeing the battlefield from afar, is able to precisely shut down targets from the safety of the rear. It's invaluable to any team composition due to its ability to neutralize any threat before the fight even begins. But it doesn't have to be necessarily played in that way. Looking at what it has to offer, in fact, it seems to be very new players friendly, and veterans alike will surely feel at home using it. King of the long-range combat, elite sniper, this guy hits hard. With a well-rounded kit to suit most fighting scenarios, it seems to be also surprisingly effective in mid-range, making it viable in tight spaces as much as in open fields. Bear in mind, all this information are sourced from the material that has been officially released so far, so even if it's pre-release and it might change in the final game, it's supposed to be pretty accurate. Side note, in order to keep this video short, I have to assume that you know how archetypes work. But don't fret if you don't, cause I got you covered. Just check out my Archetypes Explained in 5 minutes guide and then come back to this one. First and foremost, you can acquire the Hunter by selecting it at the beginning of the game, of course, as your first archetype, or at any time while in World 13 by purchasing the Rusty Medal from Brabus, the weapons dealer inside the world. Like any other archetype, the Hunter has access to 5 perks, passive abilities that grants them an extra edge in combat. Its damage perk, it's Deadeye. At level 10, gain 40% range damage, which is huge, 15% weak spot damage, and 5% crit chance. The team perk, Return to the Sender, ensures to keep a steady supply of ammo by increasing the amount of picked up ammo by 50%, and also doubling the chance that any enemy will drop ammo, provided a critical hit or weak spot damage was delivered as killing blow. Just to keep you on the same page here, in case you aren't aware, weak spot damage is always displayed with a red damage number, usually tied to headshot, but some of the enemies can have different kind of weak spots. Eyes, exposed skin, glowing orbs, so keep an eye out for those red numbers, because when you're shooting something as a hunter, that's where you want to focus your fire. Urgency is the utility perk. Firearms will gain 15% reload speed and 15% increased movement speed for 5 seconds after killing an enemy. The relic perk, Intuition, will extend the duration of any active Hunter skill by 10 seconds upon using a relic charge. This effect will degrade with each subsequent use, obviously to prevent the player from exploiting the passive beyond its intended purpose. However, weak spot kills against marked enemies will increase the speed of the next relic use within 15 seconds by 5%, and this second effect can stack up to 10 times. Final and most important of all is the prime perk, Death to Rights. Anytime that a hunter will deal 55 base range damage or more to a weak spot, the duration of any active hunter skill will be extended by 3.5 seconds. This can extend the duration of said skill beyond its initial value. Now, this will tell you 2 things. For starter, it may sound obvious, but as a hunter you should not use full automatic weapons, like machine guns, because they usually have a high DPS but a low individual damage tied to every single bullet. Nor you should use slow hard-hitting weapons, because with this perk, time is of the essence in order to keep your active skill, well, active for longer. So as a hunter, you should employ mainly semi-automatic weapons, with good range, decent fire rate, but with high enough base damage to grant the activation of this perk as often as you possibly can. To give you an example, 3.5 seconds might not seem much on its own, but to land 3 consecutive hits on a weak spot, even with its starting weapons, takes only a couple of seconds. and it will reward you with a 10+ second skill duration increase. And that's huge, because skills are where the hunter excels in dealing damage. Every single hunter's skill has relatively short duration, and you will have to push its prime perk to its maximum potential if you want to get the most out of them. This encourages a very aggressive approach, but also a very precise one, rewarding good split-second decisions and great reflex aiming. Before introducing the active skills, however, it's important to mention that unlike any other archetype seen so far, the Hunter possesses a unique effect, Mark, which states that crit chance against marked enemies is increased by 15% for all allies. Marking is applied by the Hunter skills, and each skill will apply these effects in a slightly different way. Keep in mind that each archetype gives you access to 3 skills, but you can only equip 1 per archetype. This will also apply later in the game when you gain the ability to multiclass and run 2 archetypes together at the same time. You'll have 6 skills at your disposals, but you'll have to decide which ones you want to pair together. Luckily though, you can swap them around in and out freely when not in combat. First skill and a real fan favorite is Hunter's Mark, iconic mod from the first game now turned into an ability. Once used, applies the marking effect on all enemies within 35 meters. While this effect is active, it will also increase Hunter's range and melee damage by an extra 15%. This lasts for 25 seconds, with a cooldown of just about 1 minute, depending on your expertise trait, of course. This is already an incredibly potent skill, as not only it raises your damage both ranged and melee, but it also basically turns the hunter into a radar, capable of localizing any threat before it approaches. This skill will mark and show even enemies behind walls, but solo or in a team, really way too good to pass on. Second skill is Hunter's Focus. Briefly aiming at your opponent will apply the marking effect. Also, continuously aiming down sight uninterrupted without shooting for 1 second will cause the hunter to enter the focus state. When focused, the weapon spread, recoil and sway are reduced by a whopping 75%. Focused also grants an extra 25% increase in general range damage and weak spot range damage, topping everything off with a nice 10% crit chance. The skill duration is 20 seconds, but the focus state can be maintained up to 10 seconds after the skill enters cooldown by simply keeping aiming down sights. Total duration of cooldown is around 50 seconds. Now, on paper, it seems to be a strong DPS focus skill. However, it's not really clear by just reading this if focus state keeps going after that 1 second or if it resets after you shoot. The description does say without shooting. Now if it does reset, it's just hit or miss, but if it doesn't, my god, this can turn into an absolute boss destroyer if paired with the right skill. One that comes immediately to my mind, for instance, is Sidewinder, second skill of the Gunslinger. Just in case you don't know, this skill makes so that when you swap to another weapon, you will find it fully loaded and ready to go. And since in this game you can swap in between weapons without dropping your aim, that potentially means that you can activate both skills, aim for 1 second, get the bonus, and start dropping lead on your enemies. So there it is, already a solid combo for you. Of course, we'll have to wait and try it in game to see if it truly works, but at the moment, I am intrigued. The final Hunter skill is Hunter Shroud. This skill does a lot of things, and it seems to be really appealing, at least on paper. The first and most notable things that it does is that makes the character turn invisible. Here serves reducing enemies' awareness and making the hunter harder to hit. However, attacking or activating any ability will instantly exit the invisible state. Which, you know, fair enough, not the first game that does that, classic assassin team skill. But exiting the invisible state will apply marking to all enemies within 10 meters and grants the ambush states to the hunter for 2 seconds. Ambush will increase ranged and melee damage by 50%. Let me just say that again. 50% more damage, which diminishes over its duration. That in turn it translates in, if you manage to land more than 1 hit in those 2 seconds, only the first will get the full 50% bonus damage. But still, on top of that, the hunter will become invisible again after a little more than 1 second if no offensive action is performed, which is great. It basically means that you can turn invisible, deliver big damage, then roll away to safety, and within 2 rolls time you're most likely to be invisible again. So rinse and repeat, I guess. Very interesting skill. The duration is only 15 seconds, and the cooldown is around 1.5 minutes, but definitely has huge potential even on its own. Pair this thing with the right equip, traits and accessories and you could easily make an assassin one-shot crit build, and not necessarily relying on range damage, since the 50% bonus also applies to melee. Just imagine for a moment you are a melee focused challenger and you're running Juggernaut, which between other things already increases melee damage by 50%, and you have a big sword that it might be slow, but it does a ton of damage, possibly a ring that enhances charge attack or damage against unaware enemies, and you can go invisible, repositioning yourself behind the enemy. At that point, all you need is just one big swing to literally obliterate your opponent. And this is only with the archetypes we know of. I am sure there are many more combinations out there, and these skills sound just too good in my opinion. There's a chance it might be nerfed. And finally, the Hunter exclusive trait is Longshot, which increased the total weapon ideal range by 6 meters at level 10. Which, to be honest, doesn't sound that much for a long range focused class, but the Hunter is already a beast as it is. It presents to be absolutely capable to deal insane amounts of damage, to crowd control, and also somewhat decent even at short range. So definitely a solid starting pick. Ladies and gentlemen, this covers everything we know so far on the Hunter. If you want to see more Hunter gameplay before release, check out the spoiler-free Hunter exclusive gameplay video. I hope I didn't miss anything in this overview, but in case I did, the comment section is there for you to tell me. And please let me know if you want me to break down any other class for you, even after release. Are you excited for the Hunter? Are you going to play as one? My hype at the moment is through the roof for this game, and I will be covering it with guides, weapons, armor, items, locations, builds and more. So if you're interested in more Remnant 2 content, I would suggest you to subscribe, ring the bell like a good hunter would, and as always, I'll see you all in the next video. Ocans out.